I love Erenshor. Now, I'm guessing a lot of people might not know what I'm talking about because this is a relatively new game still in early access, but when I say I love Erenshor, I authentically mean I love Erenshor. This is such a unique game in the current gaming landscape of repeat styles, expanded genres that already exist. This is a game that is sort of all its own thing, kind of. The full title, voice crack, is Erenshor, a simulated MMORPG. And I feel like we've gotten this a few times throughout the years, throughout the last couple decades, of games trying to replicate the grindy, leveling, casual style of games like World of Warcraft. And I firmly believe no game has done this better than Erenshor, and it's still in early access. So what does that mean, a simulated MMORPG? Well, in the past, a lot of games would try to make a single-player experience that feels like the grind. You would still be solo the entire time, but you'd pick your class, you'd level up, you'd get gear, sort of like a third-person Diablo style at the end of the day. But Erenshor is so much more. Erenshor is much more like a love letter to those old school MMORPGs, even older than World of Warcraft. We're talking EverQuest. There's actually a lot more EverQuest impact on this game than there is World of Warcraft, but there's a little bit of everything in it. So what is the main gimmick of Erenshor? Well, the main gimmick is that it's all offline. Again, this is a simulated MMORPG, so at no time do you actually need an internet connection to play. And that's just the first cool part, because there's actually still a login screen where your credentials don't really matter and a character select, just like you're loading into an actual MMORPG. You pick from one of four classes: Arcanist, Druid, Paladin, and Duelist, and you try to play this game solo. Like any MMO, you go out, you fight a few mobs, and the first couple mobs you're able to take out alone, and then you finish like level 1, you hit level 2, and you find yourself getting overwhelmed by individual enemies. I'm talking worse than 2004 World of Warcraft, where enemies are just stomping on you. If you're an Arcanist, you don't have the survivability. If you're a Paladin, you don't have the damage. If you're a Druid, all you have is sustainability. You can't beat anything by yourself, and if you can, it's certainly not in a timely manner. No, this is a game that expects you to team up. You can have a party of up to 4, and you can team up with anybody around you, because all the while you are questing and running around and leveling up in Erenshor, there are other named NPCs that are part of guilds that are talking in trade chat and shouting at each other in all chat while you're playing. There is a simulated chat box in the corner for dozens of NPCs that all have their own personalities, that all have their own skill levels. All of these different NPCs, there are better and worse NPCs to party up with, because just like an MMO, not all players are created equal. I made the mistake of partnering with a paladin named Scrubby. Yes, I should have gotten that from his name being Scrubby, he was not going to be a good player, but he was so endearing. Scrubby always talks in the third person about how Scrubby want that piece of gear you just dropped. And you can give it to them and they'll equip it, and so you can actually, like, the loot you get from monsters and dungeons, if it's not for your class, you can give it to your friends who are that class and they'll keep it. And even if you log out, log back in, find them again and invite them to your party, they'll still have that gear equipped, unless they advanced beyond it. Because while you're offline, the NPCs are still progressing, which I think is so cool. If you don't play this game for weeks, a lot of the NPCs you saw that were your level are going to be a higher level than you, with better gear than you, to simulate the idea that they've been playing without you. It's an MMORPG. If you don't play, the game doesn't stop. Now, luckily, there is a system in place to circumvent this. If you ever add an NPC to your friends list, because yes, these NPCs can be added as friends, they will always stay within a certain 1 or 2 levels of you. They will never outpace you completely so you can always play with the same NPCs. For example, my party consists of a paladin named Aaron, a druid named Sindara, and a duelist named Silva. They've been my team for most of the game. I had to kick Scrubby off the team because he was unfortunately just holding me back. I couldn't clear the second dungeon no matter what. I had all the skills I could learn, I had the best gear available to me, and we kept wiping. I swapped our tank out for someone one level higher, and oops, all of a sudden it was a cakewalk. Because Scrubby's just a terrible player and I feel so bad. And what's really cool about this, what I really respect the devs for, a lot of people might look at this and immediately go, because I did the same thing. I looked at this, you know, when they say every NPC has unique dialogue and responses, those 2025 alarm bells go off in your head like, so they're AI-generated chatbots. No. No, they're not. This tiny developer has taken the time to write out dialogue trees for any skill they activate, for when certain loot drops, for when they're shouting in trade chat, for when they're whispering you, because you'll just randomly get whispered from people you've played with before. They're all pre-written text. This dev went so above and beyond that they wrote the text. Now, obviously, this leads to a lot of repetitive dialogue. You know, if you hit attack while Scrubby's your tank, he'll shout out, "Scrubby is tanking," and run in every single time. It's never a unique dialogue option, but that's fine. That's like akin to PS2 RPGs for me, where, you know, your characters have like 10 lines of dialogue they'll shout in combat. That is not a deal breaker to me. I think that's endearing, and it really gets you attached to these characters. It was actually heart-wrenching for me when I had to replace Scrubby with Aaron. I don't regret it, but it still hurts my feelings because me and Scrubby were simulated friends. Do you know how awkward it is to be on the 4th dungeon and I get a private message from Scrubby saying, "Hey, wanna go do Kraken Guard, the second dungeon that we never cleared with Scrubby?" And I'm like, oh god, Scrubby's still stuck on the second dungeon and we've moved on. It is the weirdest mental thing when you load in, and it's just cool because I met Scrubby and Silvara at level 1. They're still on my team. Silvara's level 12 with me, and that actually is a great segue. I've played about 15 to 20 hours of Erenshor. I'm only level 13. This game not only emulates the gameplay style and the social aspect, I shouldn't say it emulates the social aspect, you can't hold conversations with these characters, you know, they have very limited dialogue responses, but it mimics the social questing with older MMOs, and it sure does mimic the grind. Level 1 through 5 is pretty fast. You can get from level 1 to level 5 in about an hour. Level 5 to 10 is more like 3 or 4 hours, and I'd say level 10 to 13 has taken me a solid 5 hours in and of itself. Now, part of this like 10 to 15 hour experience, and the reason I have 20 hours in at level 13, is because there's so much to explore. You will waste a lot of time trying to figure out quests, because just like old school, there is no quest tracker. There is no mini-map. There's not even an area map. You get a world map. And that is it. You know what zone you are in. You have to keep track of where it all looks yourself. Now, there are quality of life options you can tick for the game. I believe you can make a quest tracker appear if you want it, but I've been playing the authentic way, which is to not turn any of these on. You know, I've had to look things up online a few times, and I think the game could really, really explode if NPCs could give you quest information. I think that would be awesome if you could, like, shout into trade chat or all chat and say, "Hey, where is Kraken Guard?" And they'll say, "Oh, you know, you go to the Vietho coast," or whatever it's called. I think that would be really sick. Obviously, it'd be a lot more work, a lot more lines of dialogue for the dev to add to these NPCs, but it would definitely make the world feel even more alive. And the world already feels, it doesn't feel lonely. That's the crazy thing about all of this, is in 2025, someone has made a simulated game with a simulated chat that never stops scrolling, that makes it not feel lonely, and it's not AI generated, which is just phenomenal. I really cannot give enough kudos to the Erenshor devs. The devs are Bergy Media, or Bergy, I'm not quite sure which one it is, and this is their 4th game, but I haven't actually heard of the other ones. Azure Sky Project, Braggers Run, Mathletics, I have no idea. They've come up with a game roughly every 2 or 3 years since 2017, but I can only speak to Erenshor, and it's phenomenal. I actually cannot recommend this game enough. Like, there's somewhat limited replay value aside from playing a different class. And my biggest complaint right now is that there's no class, or there's no party diversity. The game is designed for your 4-player party to be one of each class: Arcanist, Paladin, Druid, and Duelist. If you don't have a Duelist, you don't have anyone who gives mana regen to the party. If you don't have a Paladin, you don't have anyone tanky enough to live. If you don't have a Druid, you don't have a healer. And if you don't have an Arcanist, you don't have any CC or burst damage. You can technically survive without an Arcanist, but the moment 3 or more enemies show up and you don't have someone to stun one, you're dead. And that's another thing about Erenshor that's so cool. Like, old school WoW polymorph mages, I'm playing an Arcanist in my playthrough. My stun is useful. Sure, it breaks if somebody deals damage to that target, but guess what? All the allies are NPCs. So there you can see who they're attacking, tab over to an enemy who has not taken a hit, stun them, and then just go back and help your allies burst down the target one. Nobody's gonna do something stupid like hit the stunned target. This is like, if you loved multiplayer MMO questing, but your least favorite part was stupid players who would like break your polymorph and junk, this is a great game. And it's cool because, you know, it's a great second monitor game. A lot of this game, just like old school World of Warcraft, it's hitting your ability rotation. You know, I'm an Arcanist. Most of the time I hit 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 4, 1. That's it. That's my entire gameplay. And I love it. It's the perfect amount of turn your brain off until a piece of loot drops, and your little goblin brain turns on, you check the stats, it might be an upgrade for you, it might be an upgrade for one of your allies, and I cannot stress enough how good it feels to be playing an MMO. And if loot drops for another class, you're not upset because your friend gets stronger, which makes your party as a whole stronger, which leads you to want to use the same allies the entire time. I don't like replacing my party members because it feels like all that loot I got was wasted. And there's that weird bond, you know, that weird computer human bond that's obviously doesn't mean anything, but it's still really, really cool to feel. You know what I'm talking about here. You know, I'm not going to die for Scrubby or anything, but, you know, there's that, like, personification, like you're playing with another human, that's just really fun to experience. I cannot recommend this game enough. You have to be willing to go through a slow grind. My last hour of gameplay has been killing druids. You know that old South Park joke about we're going to spend 36 hours in the forest killing boars? This game has that. Unless you want to look up guides to quests, which I've actually been trying not to do, so I'm kind of at a standstill right now because I couldn't figure out any of my current quests. Grinding mobs is an effective way to level up. So there's just this spot where like 15 druids spawn every 5 minutes. I go through, I kill all the druids, I wait for them to respawn, I go through and kill them all again. They all have like a 10% chance of dropping druid beads, which I can turn into a nearby NPC for extra experience and gold. It's just, there's no wrong way to play this game. You can feel lost and aimless. The one thing I recommend people do look up is the zone levels, because enemies do not display their level. They'll only display if they are trivial, easy, average, strong, or impossible. And that's not always reliable. I've been killed by strong opponents that I had no chance of beating, and I've completely demolished impossible opponents as well. So there's a lot of learning, and so your choice is either to slam your head against every possible enemy around you until you find one you can grind on, or look up a zone guide, which even the zone guide isn't perfect. Most zones cover like 10 levels. Like the zone I'm in right now is from levels like 7 to 16. So there are enemies in this zone that even my level 13 will get one shot by. And that's another thing I can't stop talking about the good parts of this. Every level feels like an insane power spike, and not because you level up and you gain a bunch of stats. When you level up, you gain very little. You gain health, mana, and armor. But the most important thing that you usually get is a new skill, and these skills jump up in power. Now, this doesn't mean there are dead levels. You know, as an Arcanist, I got my last really good ability at level 9, which means levels 10, 11, 12, and 13, or I think 11 I got another one as well. So 12 and 13, which are very slow levels already, I don't get a power boost. I'm still using a spell from level 5, which deals like 100 damage. But I know, because I looked it up because I was getting impatient, at level 14, I get an ability that deals 400 damage with the same cast time. So I'm just waiting for that level up, and that's exactly it. Just like those old school games, you're just waiting for that next power spike where you can speed up your grind a little bit more, fight and take on stronger enemies, which will drop more gear, which will give more experience, which will level you up to let you take on more enemies, and the next dungeon, it's a great cycle. And it's so chill. And they're still adding more content. I'm pretty sure they just added a max level raid. They're going to be adding more raids, more dungeons. The level cap right now is 35. And the fact that in 15 to 20 hours, I've only hit level 13 means that even if you're playing optimally, you're probably looking at a 20 to 30 hour grind if you're going fast. An average playthrough to level 35, I'm guessing, is going to be 50 plus hours. You're looking at like old school WoW classic 2004 level, like slow grinding, and that's fun. You have to be in the right headspace for it. You have to be okay with killing druids for an hour and a half to gain one level. But let me tell you, if you're in the right headspace, this game will scratch that itch like the back scratcher you've been missing for years. At the end of the day, I just really love Erenshor.